Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Keto from Keep Growing Detroit, and we are hosting a class tonight on setting up an indoor growing system. We have with us Miss Tiffany Pilson from Red Flower Growers, who's been doing a really nice job with some transplant production in her own space, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. But we were really excited about what she was doing and wanted her to help us with this class this year. This is something we do every year around this time. As always, we really encourage, if you have questions as we go along, you can drop them in the chat, and I will make sure that Tiffany, kind of has an opportunity to respond to all the questions that we're going to be talking about this evening. And if there's time at the end, we can open it up for kind of more of an informal conversation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the mic. And if we can give Miss Tiffany a warm virtual welcome, however you do. And thanks, Tiffany, for doing this with us, and go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keto. Again, my name is Tiffany Pilson of Red Flower Growers. First off, I would like to give a shout out to KGD. Thank you guys for this opportunity and for all that you do in the community, as well as the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. As Keto briefly mentioned, I am developing an urban farm in the Brightmoor neighborhood on Detroit's west side. I specialize in growing transplants using regenerative and organic practices. And I'm just going to jump right into the presentation. So how seedlings are started can determine both their growth and yield rate. As you can see, these are a few of the pictures of some of my transplants from last season. They were very healthy. I'm going to go through the steps on what I did to get them that way. The learning objectives today will be focused on how to start your indoor grow system. We will focus on light, types of lights, spectrums, the pros and cons, soil types, brands, amendments, and additives, equipment such as fans, timers, shelves, surge protectors, sprayer, trays, heat mats, and humidity domes. Light, 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 and more light. Seedlings need a lot of light to grow strong. And since we're going to be growing indoors versus outdoors where they would actually get the natural sun, the artificial lighting plays a very important role on their growth and development. Although I'm sure there are several different types of lights that can be used for indoor growing, today we're going to focus on 4: fluorescent lights, LED lights, MH lights, and HPS lights, which are the 4 primary lights that I'm aware of that are used for indoor grow systems. First off is for fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lights provide almost all blue light waves. This makes them excellent for growing foliage plants and to use them to start your seedlings as well. Fluorescent lights are cool, making them safe around plants because they won't burn the leaves. Since standard fluorescent lights tend to be limited in intensity, place them very close to the growing plants, about 2 inches for seedlings and 4 inches for older plants. You also want to leave the lights on about 14 to 16 hours per day for best results. Fluorescent lights will run anywhere from $5 to $35, and you can get them in the track as you see down in the lower left-hand corner. You can also purchase fluorescent light bulbs, and you can, the ones in the lower left-hand corner are bulbs too, depending on the light fixture. Some of the pros for fluorescent bulbs is it's one of the cheapest routes, and there's low energy consumption. Cons for fluorescent lights can be there's not a lot of lumens, and they need to be close to plants.
Hey, Tiffany,
Yes,
not getting super technical, but can you talk about what, kind of what lumens means?
sure. So lumens are, I'm sorry, I'm hearing the echo. Give me just a minute because I
Okay.
have it on my phone.
Okay, you should be able to mute one of them.
I thought I had this one muted.
I'm not hearing it over here, so that's good.
Okay, so lumens are the
Oh, now I do hear it a little bit. Okay.
give me just a second. Bear with me, guys.
I think I might even be able to do it from my end. Hold on. There it is. Oh, it's muted. That one's you're the other one's muted, it looks like.
I think it's coming from my phone because I have my phone on too. Can you still hear the echo?
A little bit, but it sounds like I can hear it from your phone. I can see you on the list of people, and I can actually ask you to mute, but it looks like you're already muted. Maybe just shut off your phone and we can deal with that later.
Okay.
That's gonna, just so it doesn't throw you off.
Okay. So lumens deals with the amount of light that is able to come through, like I would say maybe in a per second ratio. And so for instance, like the light in your living room or dining room may be about 3,000 to 4,000 lumens. It's going to determine how much light is coming in based on how many lumens there is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the more lumens that light source had, the higher the lumens, the more light is being able to come through.
Right. Right on.
All right. Next up here. Oh, sorry. We have LED lights and oh goodness, I did something funky here.
That's all right.
Okay. LED lights. So various trials have shown that LED lights produce better crops in terms of plants getting bigger versus growing under the HPS lights. Additionally, LED lights can be adjusted in order to control the flowering or how the plant grows. And unfortunately, I did something funky there and can't see my whole note. I apologize for that.
That's all right. So it says here, and I think that this information, might be, things have been changing with LEDs, I think. So it's like the prices here was, there's still a range of varieties. And we were talking about LEDs, you and I, this earlier today, about how these seem like this is kind of the next generation of lights for indoor growing.
Yes,
Just tricky. I think our conversation was just like, it has a lot of potential, but they are, you don't quite know what you're getting, and it's hard. Like, there's a lot of terminology that, through the different vendors that with the research that we were doing, and it's just hard to get a consistency. Like, my conversation with you, you were saying that you tried them and you were kind of unhappy with the results, but then other folks I've talked to, I talked to another grower this afternoon, and she's been using them, and they worked out pretty good for her. So I think this is part of what we are actually going to have LEDs as part of the grow kits, and seems like there's a lot of potential there, but it's just a little bit of a learning curve on, you got to make sure that you have a good quality of light. And I think that's like what we were gathering in our research is basically that there's not quite a good industry standard for, telling you exactly like that. If you buy a shop light, like in the fluorescent lights that we were talking about, a shop light's a shop light's a shop light, like you're not going to get
yes,
any difference. And then, like, the LEDs that you got, and then it's like it's kind of hard to get apples to apples. So this is in theory the wave of the future, but it's got some a little bit of trickiness to it in terms of finding the right kind of LED that is going to work for you.
well, overall, it is thought to be that LED lights are more efficient than old school, so to speak, light bulbs, and that they last longer than a regular light bulb.
Right.
One of the cons, and that's the pros of it. Some of the cons are the price and the coverage area for the various LED lights, like the size of them, how many you have to purchase in order to cover. So like I had 2 LED lights and they still didn't cover the plants, the seedling trays like my T8 lights do, which I'm going to show towards the end of the presentation when I show a live view of my grow room.
Okay, right on.
Next, you have the MH lights, which have been used by indoor growers during the vegetative stage of plant growth. They are ideal for growing plants up to the flowering and fruit production stages because the spectrum mimics the spring, early summer seasonal sun. Now, I personally haven't had any experience with MH lights. I do know that most of the lights in the old school balusters were MH lights and seem to have worked well back in the day. The biggest pros for those lights are the blue spectrum of light that's generated for vegetative growth. And the cons for those lights are they produce more heat and have more energy consumption.
And that's like that's like a lot more, right? Like,
Yes, they get really hot.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, they were used, you will see a lot of them, like I said, in the balusters for cannabis growing.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe if you're trying to grow something indoors, I don't know why a person would grow tomatoes indoors, but something like that that requires a lot of heat.
Right. I think that actually that brings up a really good point, is that like the intention of this conversation is really about growing seedlings, right? Growing babies.
Correct.
We're not, we're not trying to focus on things that we're going to grow to full size, because that totally changes the direction of how you're going to approach a system. Like, you're going to need more intense lights, like, you know, like Tiffany was saying earlier, like you've been using those fluorescent lights for a number of years for seedlings, and that's all you needed to get them to that size, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. The other lights is just to show, to let people know that there are various light resources that can be utilized. And
Right.
I know for myself, like most of the things that I have when I got started, someone gave to me. And so I used what I had. And so someone, may have stopped growing and they give you these lights. Well, you'll know you can use them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's like, if you're going out, I think our advice here is like, if you're going out the gate, like you don't need to jump on the metal halide, like so. But yeah, because I think we've gotten, and that's a good point. We've gotten a lot of questions about like which lights are good, and why can't I use, and it's like, you could use metal halide, but do you really need to go there? Like, so.
Yes. In most cases, like you were saying, keto, we're focusing on getting started, germination in the seedlings, and a nice fluorescent light will do, as well as maybe some of the newer LED lights.
Mhm,
Again, this is just information being passed on,
mhm,
because you never know what a person has or what someone may
right.
give to them or donate to them or come across, so you don't run out and think you have to go buy all this stuff. We're saying, hey, if you got an uncle or someone that gives you some old school MH lights, use them.
Right on.
And lastly, again, this is just information in case you come across these items and want to use them, you can, are the HPS grow lights and grow system. They produce the red light spectrum and would primarily be used once your plants are entering the flower stage. So these are probably not lights you're going to even use for germination in seedlings. We're just giving the information for the presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like, it helps clarify, like, what am I dealing with here, for sure. Get the right light for the right situation.
All right. And again, these lights produce a lot of heat because they're used for the flower or fruit stages. So the output is going to be a lot higher than the previous lights. All right, now that we've made it through the lights, there's a few other things that's needed in your indoor grow system to nurture your seedlings, and fans, which you'll use a fan throughout your growing production. If it's indoors, even in a grow house or in a grow tunnel or a greenhouse, fans are used to circulate the air in the grow room. And as the slide says, it doesn't have to be pointed directly onto the plants. Personally, I use a oscillating fan on a stand, and I kind of point it upward toward the ceiling a little bit so that it's not directly blowing directly on the seedlings. Again, I'm going to show you my grow room. You'll see my fan and all of the other things. Timers, man, I can't stress to you, timers are great for saving energy and help to mimic the natural light cycles. So timers are wonderful things to have. You get your timer, and there are various timers. The timer that's shown in the picture is great. It's not complicated to operate. There's digital timers, there's all kind of timers. The beauty of the timers is that once you set it for your 12 to 16 hour period, you pretty much don't have to worry about the lights for your seedlings. During those growth stages, they're going to need, in the beginning stages, they're going to need 12 to 16 hours of light, which is what they would be receiving if they were outside. And so with them being on that cycle, they'll be getting the light consistently at the same time of day. That way, when you get ready to transfer them to outside, they'll already be acclimated to the long long hours of sun, especially if you get your seeds started in the wintertime where the sunlight hours are shorter. If you put your start them on a timer, then they can grow as if it was the spring or the summertime, and the transition outside won't be hard on them. Shelves is great to have shelves for space, especially if you're going to be growing for the community or market. You might not necessarily need shelves if you're just going to be growing a few things for yourself. But if you're going to need space for those trays, shelves are excellent. You can get those anywhere from Menards, Home Depot, Ollie's. You can get them in materials, metal materials, plastic materials, with wheels, without wheels. And they're great because if you stop using them for growing, you can use them for other things. I also recommend surge protectors. One, they help extend the lifespan of your electronics. And the newer ones you can also use as you can also purchase the power surges, the surge protectors with timers on them as well. So say for instance, you don't get a timer just to hook up to your lights, as the one in the lower left-hand, on the left-hand side. You can also purchase a surge protector that has the timer on it as well. And it helps with electrical problems that cause spikes. So you don't want your circuits to be overloaded because you're going to be using a lot of power with the indoor light system. And so the surge protectors will protect you from power outages. Keto, is that good? You have anything to add?
Not on this slide. Well, yeah, I just like that this would all be kind of connected up together. So you could have your, you could probably connect your fan up to the same, like probably your surge protector is your lights, and your timer are going to connect to your lights and your timer. So, you know, the fans and the lights will go on at the same time. So you're not keeping them going constantly.
Correct.
Could you just spend a quick minute on saying why it's important to have fans?
Yes. So the fans are going to help circulate the air for the plants, which helps the plants to grow. Basically, when you're growing indoors, you're really trying to mimic the outdoor environment. And so plants need, sun. If they were outdoors, they would be getting the air and the wind, and to keep the air circulating and moving, so it's just not sitting still. It also helps to cool the plants. It's a cooling mechanism as well. And that's about all I have. Keto, would like to expound?
I think, I mean, that's pretty much, and then the other thing I would think of is like, it's also like helps if there are a few potential pests and. Well, it's helping dry if they're just sitting, I guess more so than pests. If there's not wind blowing on them, then there's no cause for the water to like slowly evaporate. And if it's too much water sitting in the soil for too long, then you're going to have issues with with potential dampening off or fungal issues or just other kind of growing things that you don't want to happen. So that the blowing of the fan helps to the transpiration of the leaves, and then the plant takes up more water, and so it just helps with that natural cycle. But I think you kind of framed it very nicely, that like if you're thinking of kind of keeping your mind, the elements of the natural environment, and if you're addressing those, and you're probably going to be in good shape.
Yes, that was perfect what he said. Okay, so moving on. Well, we covered the lights and all of the technical things to mimic the environment. Now we're going to focus on what you would actually use the containers to germinate the seeds. Now, the screen shows the trays up in the upper left-hand corner. Those are your grow trays. As you can see, they have holes in them. You want to use products that has holes in them, or if you're using something homemade, put holes in them so that the water can drain. You don't want the water just sitting, as Keto just said. The water needs to evaporate. In the lower left-hand corner underneath the trays, you have the flats is the one in the upper left-hand corner. At the bottom, you have the trays. And there's another slide where I'll show you those in details, but basically you'll be choosing a tray according to your growing needs. In the middle here, you have domes. Now, personally, I'm not a big dome user, but domes are great for can be great for indoor growing system to hold the moisture in, especially in the beginning stages, the first week or so of germinating your seeds, to kind of help keep the water in. New seedlings like to be warm and moist, and so the domes are great for that. Now, the thing with the domes is that you will need to remove them at some point during the day, so that the moisture can evaporate. Again, you just don't want the water sitting in with the seedlings. Upper right-hand corner and lower right-hand corner, you have heat mats, which you would put under your trays to keep your seedlings at a certain temperature. Most seedlings are comfortable at between 70 and 80 degrees. And another thing that was not on the slides, and I apologize, but I just thought of it, is you want to have a thermometer in your grow room, and you want to have it set up close to your plants as possible to monitor the temperature. Now back to the heat mats. Again, I personally have never used heat mats. There's no particular reason why I have or haven't. I just haven't. But a lot of growers use them, and I think they have great success for keeping seedlings warm, especially during the beginning stages of the germination process.
Yes, right on. Yeah, I mean, those, and I could, well, I guess we'll talk about a little bit more, maybe some other options for heating for the germination stage, I guess, a little later. Does that sound good?
Okay, and that's not on here. I use old school saran wrap to cover my to cover my seedlings, and I use a regular space heater in my grow room that I'll show later.
Perfect.
So
Yes, right on.
okay.
Yeah, and just to like talk, I guess, I mean, could you just, it's kind of hard, I guess, to see how it works. It just, can you just explain what that thing is? Like
What thing?
the heat mat.
Um, when you say explain what it is, what do you mean? It's a mat. You plug it
Yeah,
in, it has heat.
right. Right. Okay. That's pretty.
I'm sorry. You know, I really apologize for that
No,
word.
that's fine. That's
It's
fine.
not,
That's all right.
uh,
Maybe it's more obvious to some people. I just wanted to like, yeah, it's a waterproof thing that you,
oh, okay. Go ahead, Keto.
right.
You
So
probably have
it's waterproof. It's designed for this purpose. There's some charts on there, and particularly this, I think what the most important its main function is for that germination period, as you had already mentioned. And that that there's other ways to achieve that, like you're doing it with a space heater in the room. So it's just it's nice as like, especially on a smaller scale, like if you have it in your basement, for instance, and your basement is typically cooler than the rest of your house, and you don't want to have a space heater set up, this kind of is convenient in that way.
awesome. Yes. I hadn't even considered that. Great point.
Okay.
Okay. As I stated on the previous slide, I would get more in detail with the trays. So basically you want to pick trays that go with what you're growing. And as the slide says, depending on the size of the seeds and how quickly the plant grows should determine the size and cell trays you want to use. So obviously, well, the smaller trays, the one at the very bottom with the 200 holes, those seedlings are probably not going to be in that tray that long. But if you want to grow a lot of seedlings at one time, that's a great choice. And so you would use that one, probably more so for mass production. Now, what's not on here is a strip tray, and I'm going to show that when I turn the camera on in my grow room, because that's what I use for mass production. But if you're just growing at home for yourself, any of the trays, depending on what you want to grow, how much you want to grow, and how long you want to leave it in there. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're going to germinate some collard green seeds, and you might not want to transplant them from their grow tray into their permanent location for a while. And so the seedlings will need room to grow. Well, instead of using a smaller hole tray, like for instance, the 200, you might consider using a bigger hole tray so they'll have more room to grow, and you might be able to leave them in there longer until you're ready to transplant them outdoors or wherever you're gonna be putting them to grow. Most of The trays shown can be purchased at through Amazon. Is probably the cheapest route. You can also find them at any grow stores, local grow stores, as well as like Menards. I don't recommend Home Depot for that. I would probably recommend Amazon if you're a person that order, or again like Menards, or your local hydro stores. Keto, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's good. I guess, I mean, I really appreciate your comment about like the bigger space, in that, I mean, if you're growing on a home scale, if you're just growing plants for yourself or like a smaller amount, then ultimately the bigger, if they're going to be in there for any period of time, the bigger the container, the better, like you could be growing, if you started your tomato plants early and you want to have a really, robust looking tomato plant by the time you get a chance to put it outside, then you could even put it in a 4-inch pot or something. But that real estate, like ultimately, that real estate that the seed has to grow into, it's going to run out of nutrition after a time. I mean, it's only intended to be, that's why the term is transplant. It's only intended to be there until it's transplanted into its ultimate home.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And again, can't stress enough, if you think that you're a person that your schedule won't allow you to transplant them out of the smaller trays, and you're going to need a little more time, you really would want to consider getting the trays with the bigger hole, so at least that the roots will have room to grow, as Keto mentioned.
I guess, and so Rhea commented, I'm going to try red solo cups with a big bunch of holes for drainage to grow tomatoes this year, to give them some space to grow bigger before they go outdoors. So I think that's a good reminder that, these are really efficient in terms of space, in terms of, you can have a 21 hole or a 50 hole or 72 that's going to fit in a small area, but there are lots of other things that you could use as vessels for growing your transplants.
So let me cover that, even though I don't have a slide for that. Thank you for bringing that up. You can grow seeds in just about anything that'll hold something. One of the important things is for it to be clean and chemical free, and to make sure that you have holes in it. As I think you said Andrea mentioned, she's going to be using the red cups. You can use red cups. I've seen people grow in egg cartons, milk jugs. If you are big on recycling, you can use water bottles. A seed will grow in just about anything that has soil, light, and you give it some water and some drainage, and voila, you'll have a pot, literally. So don't discriminate. I've seen people use dresser drawers, all sorts of things. Like I said, if it's drainage holes, there's soil, there's a light source and water, chances are you're good to go with germination.
Word.
So I don't know how this slide got in front of the soil slide, but I'm going to jump to okay, let me get back. So as far as the equipment that's needed for growing, your lights, your fans, your thermometers, your trays, and last but not least, as far as equipment is concerned, you have your water pumps and sprayers, and spray bottles, hand pumps, and hand pump sprayers. Do you need both? I would say yes. Sometimes you might want to soak them. Sometimes you might want to just mist them. Both sprayers are essential for most growing operation. I use all three that are shown in the picture, just depending on where I'm at in the process, how much water I need, or how many plants I need to water at one particular time. Spray bottles can be purchased anywhere, literally from the dollar store to your Home Depots, Menards, Lowe's, and you can order them online as well. In my opinion, there is no right or wrong on the water sprayers, as long as they're chemical free. They haven't been used for any chemicals or anything like that. Also recommend, if you're going to be using tap water, if possible, to pre-fill your water bottle and let it sit for a couple days before using it on the plants. Keto, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, yes, I think, I guess my 2 cents, and this is only from my own home grow system, is I have the first thing. I have a squirt bottle. I don't have the other two. I see what your point is, though. I see how they're super useful. I think that the misters and sprayers help from blasting the water around when you're trying to just, and you can also use this if you're getting into like any kind of liquid fertilizer, or if you're having to navigate any kind of pest issues, any kind of sprays related to pests. But baseline bargain barrel setup, I think the first one is adequate, especially on a small scale. If you're trying to grow, but like if you're trying, like in your situation, you were growing, I don't know, 30, however many flats, 30, 50, whatever. If that's like, the squirt bottle's not gonna, that's a drop in the bucket for that whole setup. So totally makes sense. So I think it's related to scale in that way. But aside from that, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that is that's it as far as the basic equipment for starting with your indoor growing system. You need lights. You're gonna need a light source. You'll need some fan for circulation. A timer is recommended just to keep things running smoothly, and you don't have to worry about turning your fans or your lights on and off. They'll come on automatically if you use a timer. A thermometer to measure the temperature in the room where you're going to be growing. Your trays, make sure they have drainage holes, whether you use trays with multiple holes or the red solo cups or water bottles, just make sure they have drainage holes, some sort of heat, whether it's a heat mat or a space heater to keep the seedlings happy. Again, they like to be in between 70 and 80 degrees during the germination stage. And now we're gonna, Keto, if you have anything else to add, I'm gonna move on to like the actual beginning overview of the transplant process.
You're gonna go, well, we're gonna talk about soils, right?
Soil, yeah, that's what I consider that part. Yeah. So
Wait, before we go on, Selma and Nora have a question. How many degrees? Can you be more specific?
you mean between 70 and 80 degrees for the seedlings? Seedlings like to be warm.
Okay, boom, got it. Talking about soils.
Okay. So, I like soilless mix. There are a number of variety of potting mixes that you can utilize to begin your seedlings. And they're all great. When I first started, before I knew what I was doing, before I knew about Keep Growing Detroit, I literally went to Home Depot and bought 2 large bags of Miracle-Gro potting mix. I started saving my food scraps like my banana peels and orange peels, and I set the bags outside. I cut them open. I put the orange peels and banana peels and eggshells in them, and I let them sit. And my first year crop came out great. So there's a variety of potting soils that you can use. This particular one is soilless, and basically it's made out of organic matter, and it would be a little more, it's more expensive than maybe purchasing just regular potting soil from like your local Home Depot. Whatever you do, just, I don't recommend you go outside and use the dirt or anything like that from outside because it'll be too heavy. The soilless mix, one of the things that I like about it is that it gives the it supplies nutrients and gives room for the roots to grow and to retain some of the moisture that'll be needed for growing. I also like to add a fertilizer or a soil conditioner. My favorite is worm castings. And as the slide states, generally add a cup or 2 of the worm casting mix in a bin like the tote that's on the screen, or you can use a 5-gallon bucket. I've used both and mixed them up, and before putting them into whatever your growing container is, whether it's the tray or your cups or your recycled water bottles. And that's going to give your seeds a really good start. Now, another thing that I like, and I apologize for not putting it on the slides, is once you put your seed down in the soil, natural instinct will tell you to just cover it up with the soil mix that you're using. And you can do that, but if you're going to do that, I recommend really putting it on very lightly. You don't have to cover up the seeds. You don't have to bury them under the soil. You want them to have room to sprout once they, break through and begin to grow. And like I said, most potting mixes from your local hardware, Home Depots, or those type of places should suffice just fine for getting your seeds started.
And can I just add that, I mean, essentially, in a soilless mix, and you'll see seedling starter, there's like, it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the varieties of them out there, but essentially the main ingredients are peat moss, perlite, and vermiculite, and maybe some other additives. So you're, I think just whatever's convenient really is going to be like, this is a big bale. So if you are growing on a home scale, a 3.8 cubic foot bale is going to last you several years. But the bin option is really great to be able to do the mixing and stuff. But you can get smaller bags of it, or you can just buy separately if you want to make your own and keep it, like experiment. You can buy peat moss, you can buy perlite, you can buy vermiculite, and it's basically one part, one part, one part. And then similar, and then you could incorporate also a one part for the either the earthworm castings or compost. So don't be overwhelmed by the variety of choices. Just try and look for something simple. It's in most cases, it's probably just going to do you just fine.
Awesome. And this is just to show another brand of worm castings or some sort of organic compost. I am an organic grower, so most of the things that I recommend are probably going to be organic, but just the basic variety of, soil, soilless, mixed potting mix, or as Keto suggested, you can even mix your own mix up. And, don't worry, I know, like, I treat my seedlings like they're my babies, but they're not babies like human babies. So you don't have to be afraid to try different things, see what works for you with what you're trying to do with your own personal growth or your organizational growth. However you're doing it, it's going to be okay to play around with it, especially if you're just starting out. They're not real children, so it's okay. So this actually, Keto, this is the part where I would like to switch off to show my grow room.
Yeah.
And so should I log back in on my phone?
Yeah. Why don't you, I'll give you I can chat for a few minutes while you're getting yourself together there.
Okay.
Right. So now that we've gotten the baseline and talked about all the equipment, so we got the lights, we got the fans, the timers, the heat net, all that stuff. So I just wanted to say, like, we're focusing more on the equipment and getting set up aspect in today's session. And we're going to be talking about, just some kind of introducing some of the concepts of the actual process and getting started. And then the class on Saturday, which will also be recorded, is going to be focusing on more of the detail of the step-by-step of in ins out of starting each of the seeds or types of seeds and timing and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be touching on that a little bit today, but focusing more that on in depth on Saturday's session. So let's see, other things I wanted to make sure that we address. For those who just came in the room, welcome. I know a few folks have filtered in as we've been going along. I will be sharing, we do have some indoor growing kits available for people participating in the classes. And so before classes, actually, maybe I'll drop that in the chat now so you can fill that out while we're waiting. So give me a second here. Okay, so if you're interested in trying to in applying, we have a limited amount of kits. We can't give them to everybody, but if you're interested in applying, you can go ahead and fill out this form. I will also make sure that gets into the follow-up email after the class. So if you don't have the ability to kind of deal with that now, no NBD, no big deal. All right, Tiffany, how you doing? You ready?
I believe so. So I'm trying to see, can you see?
Yep, I can see you. So what we're gonna do, all right, so now what you're gonna do is come off of, if you could come out of this share screen, Tiffany. And then I'll pin you to the top. I think I can do that.
So stop share.
Yep. And then, oh, you want to pin, I'm gonna pin your phone to the top. Okay, so now you're center screen. Go for it.
Okay, cool. All right, so, so Keto, let me know because I can't see. I can't. This is
Looking
kinda-
good. Hey, guys, it looks like, just FYI, we're gonna wait just 1 second, Tiffany. Looks like the link is got a little glitch in it. I'm sorry about that. I will fix that in a second. Let's just continue with the presentation for now.
Okay, so,
So we now are, okay, everybody should be able to see Tiffany pinned to the top. Is that right? You can see Tiffany's lights and everything. You guys with us?
We see a little icon, but we don't actually see Tiffany. If that's her up there, then yeah, she's up there. It's like a body icon when you don't have your picture up.
In the middle,
This one a difference to me. She got two going.
you got two
You gotta
going.
look at the other red flower. It's
Oh,
the
I guess when
video
I'm
red.
pinning it, I'm only pinning it for myself. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you can spotlight. Spotlight might do it.
let me try.
Hold on, spotlight, which is,
I got it. I see her now. I slide it over to the third slide. Red flowers growers.
Keto, should I switch over to the main laptop and maybe try to turn that around where you can see it?
no, just give me 1 second here. Huh. Remove pin. Okay. And then. Anybody knows how to do this spotlight? They could give me a tip here.
Hi, I can see the grow table. I see the light.
Yeah,
What I just needed to do on my view was to swipe the screen to show like a bunch of different tiles, and now I can see the red flower growers. I see
oh,
the
no,
setup.
okay, I see it. Spotlight for everyone. Here it is.
Yeah, me
How's
too.
that?
Oh, that's so cool.
We in?
We're
Good.
in. We're good. It's the main
Okay.
screen.
Okay.
Oh, you guys forgive me, this is my first time doing this. So, this is, my grow room and I'm gonna adjust myself and move around for a better,
There you go. Okay, you were a little bit muted, so now I can hear you a little bit better now.
okay, can you hear me now?
If you could be a little bit closer to the mic.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, so, this is where, and you guys be patient with me, please, this is my first time, doing this setup, but I wanted to show you all my actual grow room. Can't see.
I can't hear you now. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
I'm not talking, I'm trying to
Okay.
get the camera adjusted so you guys can see what I'm seeing. So, here, like my setup with the sprayer, the bottles. Can you guys?
Uh-huh. Yep, we got you.
So those are the sprayers, you can see all three of them there. The small bottle, the pump, and the And
There you are.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you were, maybe your hand was covering the mic or something, but I can hear you loud and clear now.
Maybe it was. So as you can see, I'm utilizing the T8 lights. Those are the big old school lights. Can you see that, Keto?
Yep, yeah, it looks great. I can see you great. Mhm.
All right, so here, as you can see, I have some basil growing.
Okay, you're covering up the mic again somehow. I'm not sure.
Okay, how about now?
Perfect.
All right, so this is some basil I planted a few weeks back. Actually, it's been more than a few weeks, maybe about a month. And I planted the bigger trays because I knew I would probably be a little lazy about transplanting them. The lights that I'm using are T8 lights. I'm gonna turn it over here so you can see this one that's up in the air. It doesn't have anything under it. One of the things about the lights, because you're using artificial lights too, that I want to recommend is that you're gonna have to you will have to turn because see where the light is, and you don't want your seedlings to be leggy. In other words, you don't want the stems to grow up too thin because they're stretching for the light. And so you want to be conscious of rotating them, of turning them. So every couple days, I'll come and I'll turn those around, or I'll turn them the long way so that hopefully they're getting a even set of light, if that makes sense. Can you hear me?
Yep, 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 yep.
Okay.
Distance from the to the light, from the light to the plants is really important. Yep.
Yes. And because the light, in this case, because there are 4 bulbs and there are spaces in between, I suggest rotating them
Yeah.
so that the seedlings aren't growing in one direction. These are my spray bottles again. I don't know if you guys saw them earlier. How often do you rotate? I kind of like look at them and see which direction that they're pointing in. For instance, these. For the noise. Okay, so these seedlings are pointing to the right. Uh-oh. Okay. These seedlings. Turn them the other direction, they'll start to stand up straight because they'll start growing in the opposite direction.
Okay. Tiffany, I think maybe we could bring it back to you and we can kind of field these questions so we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. So we got a good picture there of a grow setup. Any other kind of things that you think that you would want to like, any highlights or in
Yes.
terms of like what temperature do you keep the room?
I keep the room between 70 and 80 degrees.
Okay.
I also suggest documenting everything. So if you can see behind me up there, that's kind of weird. There's a dry ease board. Can you see that
Yep.
in the background there?
Yep.
And basically on the dry ease board, I document the date that I started the seed, the name of them, approximately how many there are. And then when they start to sprout, I'll put that date down. And then when I get ready to transplant them to their permanent home, I'll document that date as well. And that's just to, so I'll know what's going on. I also use the cork part of the board to put my empty packs, seed packs up, so I'll know what I need to order when the packets are empty.
So, and then we, just to make sure there was a few questions earlier, you were, how often did you, just to reiterate, how often do you rotate when you rotate your trays?
Ideally, you would rotate them every couple days, but the seedlings will let you know when they need to be turned, because you'll see them and they'll be leaning or crooked. And so with whichever way your seedlings happen to be leaning, and it'll be all of them, just about all of them. Whatever way they're leaning, you're gonna want to turn them in the opposite direction so that they can go erect.
Right. Yeah, and so, and this kind of relates to our question or our conversation earlier this afternoon when we were just touching base, was like about light and distance. So just to reiterate, you got these T8s that you're working with, and you're keeping the light how close to the plants as they grow up?
3 to 4 inches.
3 to 4 inches. So, but with the LED lights, and this is something that is going to take a little bit of experimentation on your part when, if you go with LED lights, is they're saying that you need, you don't need to be nearly as close. So it's going to, I've heard between 12 and 18 inches. So it's, and as we were talking about earlier, it's like the LED lights could be kind of the wave of the future. And there's lots of reasons that they are a good thing, but there's just hard to know how good quality that you're working with, or the intensity of the light. Like I have 2 different types of lights here at my place right now for my home setup. And one of them, they're both LED lights. They look about the same in terms of like the number of LEDs on the strip and everything, but one of them is much brighter than the other one. And you can look at the wattage and stuff, and the wattage doesn't necessarily tell you. So it's, hopefully there'll be more of an industry standard coming down the way. And if anybody knows better or has any advice on that from your own personal experience, please speak up. But yeah, so there's, and then, so just distance from so you really gotta, it's a little bit of, like you were talking about earlier, taking care of your babies and kind of peeking in on a day-to-day to see where they're at in terms of if they look like they're stretching out a little bit, or if it looks like they're leaning to one side, and getting them to straighten out and so forth.
Another thing I think I saw in the chat is about adjusting the height of the light. Yes, as your seedlings are growing up, getting taller, you are going to want to adjust the light. Now I'm going to show real quick, Keto. You guys can see. So I have my lights on an adjustable strap there. See that?
Yep.
And so, so there's a little button on the side of them where I can raise and lower the lights according to the size of my transmitter. Let me see if I can show this. And so like I have that one up in the air, and I just click the little, and you can get those straps. You can get those straps at the grocery store. And so, yes, you will adjust the height of the light based on the length of the seedlings.
Yeah. Yep. So there was a comment, having the light too close dries it out, right? I have LED.
Yes, and it'll burn the leaves as well.
Though the LEDs don't, I mean, the fluorescent lights are warm, but they're not hot like our old school incandescent light bulb that you couldn't touch, right? But most lights these days, what we're using, whether they be fluorescent or LEDs, like you can touch the bulb. So, and then the LEDs, I would say they do give off some warmth, but not nearly as much. But you also got to be careful with that intensity being too close. There's also a question with this setup, can you grow microgreens?
Yes.
Yes, for sure. And I think this just reiterates, like, this is basically for babies, so seedlings, sprouts to, to not maybe 3-4 inches at most before we're really looking to grow them outdoors. Okay. Oh, so yeah, right. There's a question with the heating pad. Is it still necessary to keep the room at 78 degrees?
Ooh, that is a good question. Keto, do you have an answer for that? I would probably
Right.
think no. That's
Yeah.
the purpose of having the heating.
Right. And there was a comment earlier too, right? So there was somebody that said earlier that maybe the having that warm temperature is nice for those things that like it hot, like tomatoes and eggplants, the hot season stuff. Yeah, maybe. I mean, in my own personal experience, like the germination is like the most kind of critical time. And I haven't really personally, like, I grow stuff in my basement, and I mean, the heater's like 10 or 15 feet away, but it's like cooler in my basement. It's probably 65 in there, 60, 65. And they do okay. And again, we're not trying to, like, if we were growing, like, they're also called we call them transplants. They're called starts. And that term, if you just think about it, it's the beginning. We're not trying to get to fruit. We're not trying to get to full-size leaves. We're just trying to get to babies ready to go outside. If we were trying to get bigger and all that, then we would be thinking much more intensely about temperature management and light management, all that stuff. But we're not. We're just trying to get these things ready to go outside. Okay, let's see. Linnell's saying, without being able to adjust my lights, I'll adjust the height of my tray, building on something I can gradually lower down instead. So yeah, that's another way to do it for sure, like using bricks or
Oh, yeah.
boxes or whatever.
Yep.
Marquita's saying, if my ceilings are leggy, how close do you recommend I have the grow light to them?
Well, if your seedlings are leggy, then I would suggest you lower the light. Again, maybe 3 to 4 inches above the seedling's height. And you might want to consider, again, rotating the tray. If they're leggy as well.
So did you have anything else in your slides that you wanted to reference?
The rest of the stuff in the slides is basically showing a couple other transplant operations. I think one of them is Molly's and the other one may be Fisheye, not really my personal.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
stuff.
So maybe we could spend a few minutes just talking about or just like kind of walking people through the process, kind of an overview. So like so can you speak to, kind of step by step from the beginning, and maybe like referencing timing in specific, like starting out with the timing?
As it relates to the transplants.
Yes.
Okay. I do have, there's 2 other slides. I apologize, I forgot, that has the recommended time on starting your seeds indoor. Which seeds to start when, as far as indoors, like
Yeah.
4 to 6
Okay.
weeks.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's a
The
perfect.
last 2 sides are covers that information.
Yeah, let's you want to jump to that, and let's maybe
Yeah. So
you're
you're gonna have to go back to share screen.
I'm gonna remove the spotlight. Okay, and then you're gonna go to share screen again.
Awesome. All right, so
And those were just for those who are curious, those were some larger scale operations. There are, many different ways. And if you have questions about those things, we can talk about those offline.
Okay, so, and again, folks, this is just a basic outline on when to start your seeds indoors if you're in Michigan. You want to go by the last frost date. And so in January, you can start your flower seeds, your herbs and your vegetables like artichokes. You can start those like the end of January. That way they'll be ready for transplanting by the last frost date, which is predicted to be, I believe, between April the 19th and maybe the 29th, somewhere in there this year.
I always say it's my birthday, May 10th, just remember.
Okay, well,
No,
happy
and
birthday.
I'm just joking, I'm totally joking, but yeah, it seems to be creeping backwards. For many years, I always just joked about, oh, just remember it's my birthday. But yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I love it. Mid-February, you can start your onions, leeks, celery, parsley, begonias, impatiens, geraniums, petunias, pansy, viola seeds, and those, especially your onions, leeks, and celery, because they take a longer time to grow. And so if you get them started in mid February, you'll get you a nice harvest before having to wait to the end of the season. And the advantage to starting early is to extend your growth season, because we live in Michigan. So you can't grow all year round. So if you start your transplants indoor early, then you can get them planted out as soon as that first frost is over, and it'll give you a growing advantage. And basically the rest of the schedule, depending on, what it is that you're going to be growing, mid-March, you would start your peppers, eggplants, cabbage, and broccoli, your kales, things like that. And, early April, you can start your tomatoes, your lettuce, your Brussels sprouts, so on and so forth, everything that's on the list. And late April, early May, you might want to start your sunflowers, your moonflowers, your beans, squash, your melons, and things of that sort. And again, the purpose of starting your seeds indoors is to give you a growth advantage, and possibly extend your growth season as well. It can also give you an earlier harvest if you start indoors. And I believe, Keto, you'll make these slides available, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And so the next slide is the same thing. It's just giving you a list of some of the things that you would want to start, and when you would want to start them. Early, you want to start your peas, your spinach, your kale, your greens. Mid-April, you can start your cabbage. Again, your broccoli can be started then. You can, lettuce can be started. Lettuce grows so fast, it can be started probably at any time. Late April, early May, your radish, beets, carrots, things of that sort, your green onions, so on and so forth. And May, you can do some Brussels sprouts again, cauliflower, celery. Late May, June, you can do your beans, your squash, melons, cucumbers, basil. The list goes on and on and on, and also in June and July. So I think that's the last. Yep, that's it.
Okay. So, right, so now that we've like talked a little bit about timing, and again, we have a spreadsheet, and Rhea also shared an online calculator for when to start seeds indoors too. There's a bunch of resources out there, so I'll include those with the email follow-up. But if you could just now at this point, so now we talked about, okay, relative timeline to that we're gonna start one thing. So can you just talk about what goes first, like, and you all, and also I saw you mentioned the strip tray earlier, and if you could show that strip tray and
Yeah,
talk about it a
sure.
little bit.
Yeah. So I hit stop share, right?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Can you see that?
Yep. I'm hold on, spotlighting.
Okay, great. I can see it. Great. Can you guys see that pretty clear and straight?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I absolutely love strip trays. And that's because I grow my transplants in volume. And the advantage of the strip tray is that you can get multiple seeds. You can plant multiple seeds along the strips. And when they're ready to be taken out, which is called pricking, you can just take a popsicle stick, or I use a plastic knife, and pop them out, gently break them apart, and then transplant them into whatever you're going to be growing them in. If it's a bigger tray, or a pot, or even in ground. But the advantage of the strip tray is that you can get more seeds germinated than you can in the trays with the holes in them. Does that kind of sum it up, Keto?
Yeah, and so that's specifically, like you said, specifically focused. So like for the heat thing that we were talking about, it's like the strip tray. You got, in that case, you could do like 10 different varieties at once, right? And put those on your heat mat, which is focused, the strip tray is specifically for that germination period.
Yes, that's true. Now, one thing I recommend you are careful of is what you're growing, what you're mixing. And when I say that, I mean like, I don't recommend growing like a fast growing seed, like a brassica, like your collard greens or anything like that, with your celery or anything like that per se. And that's only because one seed is going to germinate faster than the other one. So depending on what you're doing, you might not want to. So for me, I try to only germinate one variety in the strip, because it's just so many.
Right, per strip.
Per strip, right,
Yeah.
per strip, yes. Oh,
And then I'm not sure, like I guess with anything like just, it's always a good idea in that case for sure is to label.
oh, yes, labels are so important. If you don't, those things will be sprouting up, and you'll be like, what did I do? Which is which? Yes, please. And you don't have to run out and buy labels. When I first started, I used duct tape. I used little strips of duct tape on my trays,
Yeah,
and I just wrote on them with the permanent marker.
right. Okay, so we got to the process so far. We filled the strip tray with soil, and then we made labels and we only did one variety per row. And how many seeds are you going to put in one of those strips?
So I am a seed maniac. And so I'll put up to 100 seeds in one, only because I'm growing on volume. But I would say maybe 10. And
Yeah,
that's to give yourself enough space so that when they're growing, they're not on top of each other. You don't have to be a seed maniac like I am.
right.
Um, uh,
So-
but
it's-
I would say it's enough room to get 10 seeds in per strip. It's
You-
20, so it's 20 strips on this tray. So if you put 10 in each one, you're talking about potentially 200 seedlings. And you have to be prepared to prick those when it's time.
So, and that's a good point. So, but like, so really you want to work backwards from how many transplants do you really want? Because if you grow out, but if you grow 100 seeds, how many plants do you think you'll actually get out of 100?
Um,
How many are going to sprout?
for me,
Yeah.
just about 100.
Okay. Well, but you can't depend on all of, I guess that's my point is
So yeah,
if you
let's
want 10,
put
do
it
you
in real
want
terms.
15?
Let's say what, 80% maybe?
Yeah, right,
Like 80% germination rate. So if you plant 100 seeds, you have a good chance of maybe 80
right.
of them.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we got them germinated, and then
Got
you were
'em.
talking about, then how much time, once they've germinated, how much time do you have before you're gonna need to transplant them into their next home?
If they're in a strip tray, you want to get them out as soon as it'll be the second set of leaves, the true set of leaves. So you're gonna have the first set of leaves and then the next set. When that next set is coming in, you want to get them out and get them either into a bigger pot where they'll have more growing room or into their permanent home.
Yeah, right on.
That can vary depending on the plant, on how long that is. You know, like a collard green seed from planting to pricking could be done within a 2-week period, whereas a celery or onion seed, it could take a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Right on. So that's actually another good point, that they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna all pop the exact same way. They're not gonna all sprout in the
Oh,
same.
no.
They're each kind of their own unique personality, so to speak.
Yes, and it's based upon, generally speaking, what family they're in. So, you know, like your brassicas, which is like your kales and your collard greens and all those seeds are pretty much going to germinate the same. But your other varieties are going to germinate and sprout at different times.
Okay. So the question is, the strip tray more for high quality growing production? I'm not sure I understand the difference from the early types of trays here grown.
Okay, so the strip tray is for quantity.
Right.
If you're like myself, I use the strip trays because I grow I'm a transplant production specialist. So I would like to germinate. I like to germinate a lot of seeds at one time versus the cell trays. Right now, this is the cell tray that I have real quick versus the cell trays where you're only gonna get, you know, so many seeds per cell. The strip tray allows you to germinate more seeds.
Okay. So what do you think about just putting the seeds directly in the cells? For a smaller scale operation?
That's perfectly fine. That's
How many seeds would you do? Would it be just one seed or would you do more than that?
So generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, you can kind of go by the size of the seed, kind of. So the smaller seeds, if it's a tiny seed, then you probably could put 2 or 3. For instance, And don't judge me on how the basil look, because I should have been pricked it out. I should have been taking them out the cells. But the basil, I put, there's about 3 or 4 in each one of these cells.
Uh-huh.
Now, ideally, if I had been diligent about getting them out, I probably would have gotten 3 to 4, been able to take out 3 or 4 and replant them. So I put about I put 2 to 4 seeds per plug here.
Okay.
Exactly.
And ultimately, I mean, ideal scenario, and you're gonna get the best, final product if you're gonna be more like 1 per cell, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it won't be anything else in there to compete with the space. So roots like to spread, they like to spread out, they like room, and the more room they have, the better it is for them.
Yeah. And so I guess if you don't have a strip tray and you're on a small scale, you can either just you could just take a pot or something and put a bunch of seeds in, and once they're germinated, spread them out, or you could do the direct seeding, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. As I stated earlier, you can use, I literally took a class with MSU. One of the instructors was germinating her seeds in a egg cart. Like you can use an egg cart. You can use Linnell, who's on I saw her name. I think she asked a question.
Yeah.
She used water jugs and 2-liter pop bottles to put seeds in. As long as you, like I said, as long as you have a light source, soil, water, and drainage. You have to make sure whatever you're using, if it doesn't have holes in it, to put holes in it. You can just a shoe, dresser drawers. I mean, you can really get creative in what you grow.
Yeah. And Rhea's made a comment here that I think is great. Yes, but you could also plant a few, then thin them, choosing the most strong and vigorous ones. So
Yep.
it's a good point when you're like and then also when you're pricking out or taking those little babies and putting them into the bigger pots. We're always looking for the most strong and vigorous ones.
Yes, true.
Okay, so we got all right, so we got them germinated. We got them they got their first true leaves, or the second set of leaves, which are their first true leaves. And then we got them into their new home in the bigger cell packs, and we're saying we only want 1 per cell. And then, as big as a vessel as we can, we have room for, really, because then they'll grow much more vigorous. So I guess what's next? How long? I guess so ongoing care is then we got them under the lights, and we're talking about the distance from the lights. We have our fan going along with our timer, 12 to 16 hours of sunlight. What's your watering schedule?
That is a very good question. So how do I explain this in layman terms? I would say every couple days. You don't want to over water your plants. You don't want the roots to get too much moisture in them. And different plants require different amounts of water. For instance, celery and lettuce plants may require more water than a cauliflower or a spinach plant. But really and truly for me, and Keto, you might be able to expound once I'm done, I can kind of look and see, like, when my plants they'll start to get dry. It'll give you some signs. I'm gonna get you back out. they'll give you signs. You'll be able to see the color, like if the color, I watered these before the class because I had neglected them. I wish I would have kept some of them dry, but you'll be able to see the color. It'll get lighter, like dingier on the top.
The color of the soil you're talking about.
The soil. Now, if you let them go too long, you'll be able to tell from the plants because they'll start to wither over, or like this one, it's completely, I'm gonna just go ahead and take it out because it's not, it completely withered up because of lack of water. But just from the cell, so let's say the plants still look okay, but you want to see if they need to be watered. Just from the soil itself, you'll be able to tell if it's dry. It'll be a lighter color. The soil will separate from the sides of the growing container, whatever you're growing it in. So it'll start to shrink in where it's not touching the sides. That's a sign. And you can also tell by the weight. So once I watered this tray, the tray got heavy because of the water. But earlier today, before this class, I hadn't watered it in some days. It was light as a feather. As soon as I picked it up, I mean, it had no weight at all. And if I couldn't tell by looking at it, I would know that it needed some water because it doesn't have any weight on it. I don't know a scientific way of knowing how to water. Keto, maybe you can expound on that.
No, I think you pretty much hit. I mean, I guess as a rule of thumb, you want to check on them every day.
Oh, yeah.
But and like you said, like if you leave them too long, they're gonna look pretty sad and lean over. Don't ever give up. We never want it to get there, but you can use. There are many situations, specifically like some plants like tomatoes are really good at bouncing back, but we never want to let them get to the point where they're actually leaning over. But it can be salvaged in some cases, I guess.
Yes, I am a testimony of that. Plants can be very, very, very resilient, especially that's why it's so important how you get them started, like your soil and your compost or your fertilizers that you're using with them in the light source, so that they will have that resiliency just in case, you go a couple days and you don't water them or something like that, so that they will bounce back.
Okay, Sandra's got a question. I have a tray with really small cells. Is it better to start with larger cell trays like the ones you just showed, or maybe cups?
It depends. If that's all I had to start with and I didn't want to purchase anything else, I would start with those trays. You just will keep an eye on when your seeds start to sprout and see if they need to be transplanted to something bigger. If that's what you have to do, or you can put them in something bigger, to start with, such as a bigger tray or cups or something.
You probably be less. I think the biggest concern about the smaller cells is just they're just going to dry out quicker.
Mm.
And
That's
that's including the strip trays. So the strip trays are only half inch, an inch deep at best, right? Inch and a half.
Yes.
Whereas like the 4-packs are 2 or 3 inches deep. So it's just more soil real estate, so to speak. Okay, well, so I think that's a pretty good kind of introduction to the process. I think we're gonna open it up to some questions, just general, before we wrap things up for the night. I'll put the I guess I don't. At the same time, I'm gonna try and see if I can change the settings on this. Make sure that this you guys can do this the form for the transplant kit, the indoor growing kit for members of the garden resource program. Okay, so questions. So having a transplant to larger trays, cups before going outside won't cause shock.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Keto.
So the pricking out process, the question is, that's not gonna shock the plants?
It shouldn't, I mean, it's a certain type of way that you should handle them, and the transplants the roots don't like being exposed. And so you do want you want the environment to be warm, but not too hot. And you want to get it done as quickly as possible. You want to handle them a certain way. Where's my little sample tray? You don't just want to just yank them. You don't want to just yank them out. You want to, depending on what you're taking them out of. You want to be careful in how you're handling them and breaking them apart, the root system. When you're taking them loose to transplant them. But other than that, they should adjust to their new environment pretty well if you have healthy roots and you don't just manhandle them when you take them loose.
Right. And those ones are even, are bigger than what you would typically do.
Yeah,
The transplant. So
yeah.
the roots just to say that, like, if you're doing the little, when they're, like you were talked earlier about the first true leaves, if you're getting them at that stage, the roots are not nearly as developed and they'll come apart really easily. So they tend to do pretty good about that.
Another thing, it's not suggested that you handle them by the roots. And so you can just, especially like Keto was saying, the real baby ones that's coming out the strip trays, the roots won't be as intertwined as they are in here. And you'll just take them, the second set of leaves, and kind of like give them a little tug there and just put them in their new home right away. Don't take them out and just leave them to sit. When you're transplanting them, go ahead and transplant them.
Okay, so next question. So, do the 4-pack trays typically not require additional transplanting until ready to plant outdoors? So I think that kind of refers back to what we were saying. If you're on a smaller scale and you got the 4-packs and you want to kind of simplify the process, you can direct seed into those 4-packs. Just plant a few more seeds and thin them out.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I did change the settings on that survey. Sorry. It was set to not accept, but it should be working now. So if you would like to apply for the indoor growing kit, you can check that out on the link I just put in the chat. And again, I will share that in the email with the follow-up. So let's see, there was a question, then I see a hand raised. So question, when can seedlings be moved to a hoop house? So you want to field that one, or you want me to give it a stab?
Yeah, go ahead, Keto. I'm curious to, but I have a greenhouse. I have to transplant it. Well, I transplanted to the hoop house as soon as they were ready to go into a bigger pot. And I have a greenhouse as well, so I've done both. Go ahead, Keto.
Right, so let's just to clarify terminology a little bit. So a greenhouse is a heated outdoor space, right?
Right.
If you're growing in a hoop house, which Tiffany's got some new hoop houses that are basically the only heat that they're getting is from the sun and from the geothermal heat from the ground. So that tool, the hoop house, the unheated greenhouse, is intended to let you get things planted outdoors sooner. So we were talking about earlier the last frost date, and so we don't plant things outdoors that are sensitive to frost after the last frost date. So those would be anything that's a hot crop, or so any of the tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, things of that sort. But things that are cool season crops or cold crops can tolerate a little bit of cold and can be planted out earlier. And so those dates, and again, we got those charts, so we're referencing charts for all that stuff. But in terms of getting, things planted out in like a greenhouse setting, or if you're even the like quick hoops or a low tunnel type setting, that you can, it depends on what it is the short answer. And so if it's something that's sensitive to freezing or cold temperatures, you should be aware of that. But like look at the dates. So it's at the very minimum, it's a sunlight thing. So, but think people growing in hoop houses are actually starting to be able to grow things in their hoops as early as the middle of February or March, because the day lengths are long enough at that point. And those things that like spinach that can tolerate, those cooler temperatures will do just fine in that scenario. So hopefully that answers your question. And feel free to come off mute. So at this point, we're just kind of opening it up for questions. If you want to come off mute, or either way, or drop more questions in the chat. I'm not sure. Let's see who had their hand raised. So would the spinach be in the ground in March or in a pot? I would say you could direct seed. You could do both. You could direct, and you might have more success just because they need like 50 degrees or something temperatures to germinate. But you can be planting you can get those spinach in the ground as early as mid-February. Okay. How's everybody doing? Did I get that raised hand? Did I address that raised hand?
Nope, that was me.
Okay. Who is this?
I'm sorry.
Who am I? Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
this is Kiana.
Hey, Kiana.
Hi. So I'm in a smaller space, and I certainly I'm not going to have a whole room to dedicate to my indoor system.
Yeah.
So are there any considerations that you would say when I'm thinking about like where to place that within my home?
You want to take that, Tiffany?
So, do you think you'll be growing? I guess it would depend on what you were going to be growing, because like there are people that have small herb gardens in their homes that they kind of like grow on the windowsills or on a table or something like that. Do you already have a idea of what you're going to be growing?
So this would be like the transplants for the crops that would eventually, go outside. So just starting those seedlings.
Okay. So you would probably go with the maybe use the shelves, maybe put them on a shelf, stack them that way so you can maximize the space. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
And I would just add, like, as long as you have, a kind of consistent, conditioned space, it's not like a drafty by the front door or something. And you're able to get your light set up, and you just thinking about ultimately, just think about your ultimate space that you will need. So like, I want to grow a dozen tomato plants that are going to be in 4-inch cell packs. And so like, get a visual of what, 3 4-inch cell packs looks like. And then what the real estate you have to have for your lights. Because also the lights are, if you just have one, Tiffany's got a large light set up there. She could probably fit 6 or 8 trays under that light. But if you're growing on a smaller scale, or like the kits that we're giving out can only really fit maybe 2 trays. And it's plenty. I mean, in the end, like you can get a lot of plants out of that much space. You can get, 272. If you had 2 trays, that's, if you're doing 6-packs, that's 140 plants. That's a lot of plants. Or even if you're doing 40, if you're doing 4-packs, that's 48 plants. That's still a lot of plants under, the light setup. Like I am looking at one across the room here in my office that we have set up, and it fits the footprint of about, a 2 by 3 area or something, 2 foot by 3 foot or something like to that effect. Could fit, so a lot of plants. So as long as you be able to have that, you got the lights and the adjustable and the fan set up, like as long, you can pretty do it on a relatively small footprint. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Because there's a hand, is there another hand up, or was that the other one? Was that from last time? Was that Kiana?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've been trying this indoor garden thing. I had some seedlings sprout, but they got leggy and died. You guys answered one of my questions earlier about the fan. Well, you didn't answer my question actually. I wanted to know, how often do I leave the fan on, and when do I turn it on?
Keto, you want to give it a stab? Because I'm not faithful with the fan, to be real honest. But there are some people that leave their fans on all the time in their operations. I've seen operations or growers who don't use a fan. I would probably say maybe have it on as long as you have your lights on. But Keto, is that about right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of an easy way to do it, because you have it connected to the
This
timer.
dried out and died on me. It lasted throughout the summer and throughout the winter. Finally then died. I just grabbed it and it came right out. My little green onions here. I'm listening, Vito.
Okay. Yeah, so just, same, I think it's easy enough to just say just keep it on the same timer as your lights, and that's probably going to do you just right.
Okay. So for my fan, I don't have a timer. For my light, I do. I'm gonna show you my light. Is this low light I purchased off Amazon?
Wait, hold on, I'm finding you here. There you are. Okay.
So I don't know if you guys was looking. This is my light that I bought off Amazon. It does have a timer. Just a moment. I'm gonna plug it on because it has 3 different settings, and I've been reading some indoor garden books to learn more about growing indoors and to get an understanding of what light to actually buy at the time.
Yeah.
And the lighting system. So I have blue lights, which I know that's the strongest light, heating light. And then I can, lower it and stuff like that. And then I have, I get confused. Okay, this is the blue light.
Uh-huh.
Then I'm not sure when should I have this light setting on? Like, is this natural sunlight or?
Yeah, I think for our purposes, for growing just the transplants indoors, we're really just looking for the full spectrum white light.
Now, would this be full spectrum white light? It looks blue on the camera, but it's not blue. This one is blue.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say without, because so and then that just brings us back to our conversation from earlier, is like the LEDs are still somewhat of a new frontier, and I don't think all lights are created equal. Like, so I would, if you have plants, I would play around with distance. You might need to do a little bit of trial and error with what you got and see how the plants are reacting to it. Do they look? You can look at a plant and see it's popping and happy. It'll look real rigid and it'll
I
just,
had some going, like, okay, so I'm gonna show you what I got now, cause I got 2 cilantro seedlings that haven't died yet. So, hold on a second, and you tell me what's your take on it. I got a little pest on here, so
Okay.
beware, guys.
and I just want to say, we just got a couple minutes left and I want to be respectful of folks' time. We said 6 to 8. So we're gonna wrap up in a few minutes after
Okay,
we address Marquita's questions here.
so for this one, what do it looks healthy to me, but as you can see, some of them died out. As you can see, it's a
Right,
little,
so
it
those
is dried out.
Right. So those are
Cilantro.
cilantro. So definitely look a little bit leggy and at this point, I probably would have spread them out into other pots, like using that pot to start the seeds would be fine, but looks like before you had 6 or 8 and now it's down to a couple. And they're still, you can see they just have the first leaves, the cotyledons. They don't have their other leaves yet. So, I mean, Linnell's made a comment here in the chat, and I think, is maybe just start out with having those lights a lot closer and making sure you're doing at least 16 hours a day. And see, like, but they don't look, they look okay. I would just say that, like,
But this one does it.
it looks pretty leggy. It would still recover, that one still could pop off. It looks a little dry right now. That soil looks a little dry. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like with that, I can see that you kind of have that rack system where it's kind of built really for house plants. Right. So that one light for all that stuff is probably not going to be adequate. You want to have,
Okay.
that's I would say you're gonna I would say you probably want enough light that it's just like whatever is directly below it is what that is dedicated for. It's not, even though the light in theory is like spreading to the other stuff, you
Yeah,
want to have
all of them face in one
kind of
direction
a
over something.
concentration of light. Like, I'm just going to show you there's just toys under it right now, but my kids light, let's see if I can switch. Yeah. This is the light, that I don't know, hold on, let me turn off the. So this is like a really simple light setup I have.
Mhm.
And there's no plants under it right now, but this is like my kids' toys are under there. But just to give you an idea, like, this is my hand, but like everything is getting in. I would have them down a little bit closer, but like if the plants were this high, you want to have all that light, you got to have a
Down
lot
a little further.
yeah.
Is
So
that about right? Or should I go
yeah,
down some
yes.
more?
No, I think you're getting there. I think
Okay.
that's what you're going for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So with that, I think we're right at time here. Do stay tuned for the great class. Miss Merle's group is going to be doing the next class, focusing a little bit more on the steps of the process. And I guess since Tiffany's got a lot of practical experience. Tiffany, is there a way folks can get a hold of you if they have more questions?
Sure. Could drop my email in the chat, or can I? Oh, I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, I can do it.
All right, and I'll also share that in the follow-up email. So Marquita, it looks like you're right. You're on the right track there. So just
So I
okay,
just
guys.
email in the chat,
What is it, Red?
right?
What's that? Yeah, yes, for sure.
Flower growers.
I got it. I see it in the chat. Keto,
Okay.
I have a quick question. Well,
Yeah,
okay, so for the growing kit, I don't need everything. I honestly don't. As you can see,
Okay.
I have a growing mat, but I do need like those trays.
Okay,
And a
Um,
dome. So I'm not sure.
yeah. I can't remember how the survey is and if there's a way or a spot where you can write a note. But if you.
It
um,
wasn't. I can email you.
That's fine. Well, yeah, between T and I are working on that, like for materials for that, so. I'll
I'll
make
email
sure-
both of you guys. I'll send it in a group message.
Sounds good. All right. So, I think we're gonna wrap it up there for the evening. Good to see everybody's virtual faces, and hear your voices and see you in the chat and all that stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing you more in person as the spring and summer come through. Hopefully this got you off to a good start. And if you have questions, we want you guys to be able to be successful indoor growers. So there's between ourselves and our in-house transplant grower, Akello is really awesome, and he's going to be at the next class too. So there's some really good resources out here to get you guys going and get you started and supported. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll also drop my email in the chat. And with that, we will see you at the next one, y'all.
Thanks,
Oh,
everybody.
yes, and for sure, Tiffany, you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you killed it for sure. For
All
sure.
right. Awesome.
Thank
Uh,
you. Have a blessed night.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.